Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Hassan with another live stream coming to you April 9th, 2025. And I've been starting to do these live streams because people want to know more about, each week there's new stories breaking and weird things happening and want an opportunity to ask me questions and interact with me. And I want to build a community that's based on freedom of mind. I say it's your mind and only you should control it. So my life work is really about encouraging people to understand how the mind works, understand neuroscience, understand social psychology, understand models like my influence continuum, to understand ethical to unethical uses with the bite model of authoritarian control. And the Cult of Trump book is being validated in bigger and bigger ways every single day, because Trump has asserted that he knows more than the economists, and he put these tariffs in place this last week. Only now, as of this moment, I looked at Associated Press, who had been banned, by the way, by the White House because they refused to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, because Trump said it was now going to be called the Gulf of America. Anyway, they're back in. And essentially, all the economists said tariffs are a tax on the people. It's really bad. It creates business uncertainties. And I believe $11 trillion of the stock market has been lost since Trump decided that he liked tariffs and we're going to do them. And as of a few moments ago, Associated Press said that he's going to do a 90-day pause on tariffs except for China. And he's increased the tariff on goods from China to 125%. So what's happening? Some very positive things are happening since there were all these massive protests around the country last Saturday. And I believe there's another one scheduled this coming Saturday. If not, it's the following Saturday. I think it may be the 19th. But it's very interesting that more and more people are exiting the belief that Trump is a great force for good and he's going to make America great again, and are questioning this. Some are downright angry at him, especially vets who've been fired from the government, especially farmers who've lost their subsidies for growing crops for USAID. And Wall Street and a lot of the wealthy folks are very angry at Trump because business does not like uncertainty. And just pausing the tariffs for 90 days, I'm not sure is going to give certainty to the markets, although AP said the stocks are going back up again. They were down in territory has not been seen in so many years. So Musk questioning Trump is a new um, development, and a positive one, because there are fissures opening up in the GOP, which we want to happen. And we especially want to direct people who are exiting the belief in Trump and the GOP to pressure Trump and their politicians. And another interesting development was in Congress. One of the congressmen I read rebuked Mike Johnson in the name of Jesus. And I view that as an extremely positive development. Why? Because we really need more religious people to stand up for the teachings of Jesus and Christianity against Paula White, against the Moonies, against all of these new apostolic Reformation prophets and apostles, against Opus Dei. and these groups that are authoritarian who are saying that they know what Jesus wants and they know what God wants, etc. We need more people to remind these co-opted cult members to go back to the Bible and how Jesus and the Bible said even the elect are going to be deceived, and that you can know the tree by the fruit it bears. Good trees bear good fruit, and bad trees bear bad fruit. And if you look at the fruit of Donald Trump's career and all of his crimes, all of his convictions, his impeachments, the fact that he unconditionally pardoned people who were in jail for the January 6th violent insurrection, there's a lot of people who need to be verbalizing and exercising active resistance as we go forward. So all I can say is former cult members who understand brainwashing and mind control exists. I really want to encourage people to open the gates wide, talk to folks who are disillusioned with MAGA, avoid the temptation of saying, I told you so, or how come you didn't listen to me, and just say, now that you realize that Trump is not a good force, how are we going to proceed together to keep America intact? Because obviously what's happening is a systematic destruction of the US government. Trump has taken off cybersecurity. Do you know that? Like, why? Well, it's opening the gates for Russia and bad actors to harm and do undue influence on the American public, which is not okay. All of these agencies designed to protecting food, protecting environmental safety have been disempowered. Now that Trump cult is telling universities that in the name of anti-Semitism, they're going to be unfunded if they don't dismantle DEI policies and such. So they really are demonstrating every single passing day that they're acting like an authoritarian mind control cult. And we want to step up and name it for what it is and say that this is a hostile takeover of what our founders and the Constitution established for hundreds of years. And we want people like Joe Rogan to not just criticize the tariffs, but to recognize Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. Trump is deranged. He's mentally disturbed. He's dangerous. He's certainly not a believer in God or Jesus, despite all of his cult member Christian-esque people surrounding him. So I can go on, but I'm very interested if you have questions that you want to ask, and I'm happy to interact with you. Shannon, my MAGA mom says Trump has a deeply loving heart. Stephen, help. So if I don't know your mom and I don't know your relationship, but if I was to guess, if she says he has a loving heart, you'd say, huh, interesting. Could you please give me an example of him having a deeply loving heart that makes you say that, Mom? She might quote some propaganda made by Russia or China, but find out what she's talking about. And you can say, I know that you have a deeply loving heart, Mom. Are you sure you're not taking your goodness and projecting it onto Donald Trump? Because the evidence is that he says really cruel, demeaning things to women. And in your mind, as a woman, and Mom, you're a woman, this is misogynistic, no? And just keep in mind, you always want to ask it as a respectful question. Be patient, wait for an answer, and follow up. And but don't try to talk her out of it. Don't attack Trump or call her names, because that's counterproductive. Let's see. Peaceful Warrior. I am traveling overseas, and I can vouch that people everywhere are upset at Trump and turning against America. Yep, I'm afraid that that's predictable and understandable. And what we want to say to folks overseas is the American people, most of them did not vote for Trump. It was a minority. And even though they're controlling the government at the moment, this does not represent all of America. And please do whatever you can to help Americans understand the reality. And I have been listening to European leaders who are now saying the European Union is going to be dramatically changing course, not depending on America anymore, and developing legislation and regulation to protect their citizens, as America is disbanding these regulations and protections. And so they're going in the right direction, and Trump is going in the wrong direction, which makes many of us feel very unhappy, unsafe, and but we need to do active resistance. Let's see. Lisa Kelsey says, Americans that are close to retirement are watching our savings go down every day. Guilty. I am one of those people. I'm going to turn 71 next month, and I have been drawing Social Security. I did not wait till I was 70. I started drawing it at 69. And the Trump administration is underfunding Social Security, closing offices, making all kinds of regulations that are going to make it harder and harder for people to get what is due them, that they paid money into the system. And I think we're really in a lot of trouble, not only looking at our retirement savings going down, but possibly losing Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. And that's going to put a lot of burden on adult children of seniors to look after mom and dad, which is not going to be easy. People are going to need to adjust dramatically to this new regime and get ready for a tax break for the super wealthy, which is just wrong and immoral. Jerry says, please comment on how cults often make bad decisions like these tariffs because of their authoritarian nature. Thanks, Jerry, for the question. So the stereotypical profile of destructive cult leaders is what Erich Fromm called malignant narcissism when he analyzed Adolf Hitler after World War II. And just to read the criteria that Fromm came up with, he talks about grandiose, self-centered behavior, fantasies of power, success, and attractiveness, constant need for praise and admiration, sense of entitlement, lack of empathy, which is huge, plus thinking they're above the law, pathological lying, interpersonally exploitative, sadistic, harassing and silencing, we see that in spades, violent, paranoid, and inability to trust friends. And what we see with the Trump cult is he only put loyalists, people who said he won the 2020 election, which he did not, the 2024 election, which he did not, which he won, but with question marks, the 2020 election. And loyalists who say January 6th was not a violent insurrection, an attempt to undo the constitutional transfer of power. And so when you have somebody at the top and everyone's swearing loyalty, nobody can say to the king, to the emperor, you have no clothes on, or excuse me, sir, but you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because if anyone said that to Trump, they would be fired. They'd be kicked out immediately, right? So when you're in that bubble at the top of a pyramid, and I will show this graphic as well, when you're at the top of the pyramid, there's no accountability, no taking responsibility. Thanks for putting that up. No responsibility, no accountability. Can't say I made a mistake or I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry about that. And so we see this in mind control cults all the time. Mooney, Scientology, Falun Gong, and others, where the leader says, we're going to do it this way, and everybody is a yes person until they run away and exit the cult. So this is very dangerous. Forensic psychiatrist Bandy Lee wrote several books on the dangerous case of Donald Trump and the dangerousness of Donald Trump. And she's been silenced, and other mental health professionals like myself have been largely silenced by media. So I'm doing live streams. I'm still doing interviews for documentaries and podcasts. And I'm going to just add, I have a new volume that just came out Monday. Um, it's really exciting. We've been working on this for several years, and it goes along with my course for clinicians that we also have a version for citizens, parents, people who have loved ones in cults, ex-members. And we connect the dots with a lot of the research I've done in the last few years to give people more information and more tools. Let's see, the Bird 78, I'm not ready to make nice with them just yet. I admit that. I hear you. You are angry, you're hurt, and you want to punish them. I get it. It's a normal human feeling. But I would urge you to, share your feelings with other like-minded people. But I would encourage you not to share that with people who are exiting the cult, because it's going to make them not trust you. It's going to make them feel shamed and guilty and embarrassed. And what we want is to welcome them and to mobilize them to be messaging with us against the authoritarian nature of the cult of Trump and mind control. Everyone is an individual. Everyone gets to decide your personal choices. I'm here to share my expertise as a former Moonie, someone who has been working in this field for 5 full decades. So I'm giving you my advice based on real life of what I think is needed for planetary survival. Let's see. The next one, Trump just backed down on the tariffs with China for 90 days and claimed a victory. He didn't back down on the tariffs with China. He backed down, he paused the tariffs with other countries, at least according to Associated Press that I looked at just before I started. His cultists are cheering him now as a genius on Fox. Yeah, so, the cult leaders can say it's raining outside, and people are like, yeah, it's raining, and you can walk outside and the sun is shining and there's no rain. But everyone else is saying it's raining, and then, the next minute he can say the sun's shining and you go outside and it's raining. You have to come back to reality and understand that people are liars. People, can say things as cult leaders, and it is not necessarily true. So, to make note of the fact that people are blindly following Trump still, it's disappointing. But I believe everybody will have their own tipping point. And I've been seeing more and more people making videos on social media talking about how much they trusted Trump and voted for Trump and how they realized they made such a tragic mistake. And again, it's a matter of I'm encouraging people to reach out now to anyone they know that it has been a supporter and engage them. And if you have an opportunity to do that in person, do it in person. If not on person, do it on video. Those are the two best ways to do it. If not that, on the phone. And then only if you can't do those three, do it on texting or email. But I'm definitely for an interactive modality. Benjamin says, do you believe that a greater and general sort of economic cult of growth exists in America? Not sure what you mean by a greater and general source of economic cult of growth exists in America. I can tell you my opinion goes back to the cult of Trump, and where I talk about Edward Bernays being used to do PR and by Madison Avenue to create needs in people for products that they don't need, to make them feel deficient, to get them to buy things so they get a dopamine hit thinking that it's going to make them happy. And for people to realize that, you get happy for a few minutes and then it goes away. And then you're like, why did I buy this thing? I'm not using it. Or I regret it because it's poorly made or something like that. And I think we need a fundamental reshifting of how much do we need? How much is enough? And this incredible disparity between the super wealthy and the average person is obnoxious. And similarly, I don't believe everyone who is very wealthy is automatically evil and is the enemy. Not at all. I do not believe that. That's what Mao taught. That's what Marxists teach. I am not a Marxist. I think super wealthy people can do a lot of good with their money and not just be concerned about making more money, but actually think about planetary survival, think about their children and their grandchildren and the planet. We're losing our ecology around the world, and it's going to have more and more extreme weather effects. And we can't afford to allow Coke and Putin and the Saudis and other oil corporations and companies or coal fracking people to continue unabated to destroy the world's environment. It's just counterproductive for sustaining life. Let's see. Can you testify if we get the 25th Amendment enforced? The 25th Amendment is when the cabinet believes the president is mentally ill, and I believe Congress has to vote on it, and that's just never going to happen in the current environment. I think we need to focus, however, on specific Congress people and senators who are GOP and get them to realize that they're on the wrong side. If they love America, if they believe in rule of law, and if they believe in the Constitution, they may get primaried, they may get threatened by the FBI to investigate them or whatever, but they need to do the right thing. They're supposed to be public servants. So that's where I think we need to really exploit the fissures that are opening up. And reality is very powerful ultimately. So we need to be actively resisting and not just giving up or losing hope. Let's see. How do I engage with Christian nationalists in laws? They voted for Trump. So I interviewed Amy Tyler, who's a Baptist attorney. She wrote a book, How to End Christian Nationalism. And we want to interact and support Christians who are lawyers, who understand that Jesus said, don't get involved with politics. Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, contrary to the dominionists who say we need to take control of the earth and the world. We want to empower Christians to speak truth to power and engage with the legal system. The problem we have, because Trump has taken out so many inspector generals in the military and elsewhere, we've lost the ability to enforce decisions by courts, because a judge can order something, and if the DOJ, Department of Justice, doesn't send marshals to enforce the law, then nothing's going to happen. And this is the situation where we have been. This has been the heritage. Yeah, thanks for Amanda Tyler. Did a very interesting interview with her. It's on my Substack and my YouTube channel. How to Stop Christian Nationalism. I've done numerous ones on New Apostolic Reformation, on Opus Dei. We're working on more content to put up on freedomofmind.com and my Substack. And the bottom line is they voted for Trump the last time, but what's going to happen now? And I'm not confident in 2 years that the system won't get even further hacked, where people will be disempowered, or social media manipulation won't be leveled on people so that they don't come out and vote, or they vote for someone they don't want to vote for. Robert says, thanks for your show, Dr. Hassan. How should we bring up Trump and his tariffs without being jerks, but emphasizing he's doing the things we predicted based on Project 2025? The key thing in your messaging is, how do you bring it up without being jerks? And my answer is, the best thing to do is be respectful and put it in a question. Like, did you study what Project 2025 is by the Heritage Foundation? What are your thoughts about Gareth Gore and his book on Opus Dei, where he talks about the person who created Project 2025 being a member of Opus Dei? What do you think about Opus Dei, where they're trafficking underage women as slaves? And what did you think of the docuseries about women who've been? What do and ask small bite-sized questions in a respectful way. Be patient for an answer, and then do a follow-up question. And you can say, I want to believe that the tariffs are going to make the world a better place. But it's interesting that even people in Trump's own administration question whether or not it will have any beneficial effect, but will likely have detrimental effects, especially tariffs with our partners in the EU, Canada, and Mexico. So asking a question, being patient, waiting for them to think about it, doing a follow-up is what I'm recommending. And just be prepared to change your own mind. Take that tack. That's what I do with people. It's like, convince me that tariffs are going to be beneficial, when every single economist says it's a taxation on the average citizen, because goods are going to be more expensive. Then you can ask people, were you thinking of getting a new car? How do you feel about paying 20% more, 50% more, 100% more? Small business owners are very unhappy with any tariffs, because business owners want certainty. And we want people to have money so that they can purchase our services or our goods. Tam says, Dr. Hassan, would you tell a Trump supporter do the hair checklist on him, meaning on Trump? I personally used it in my life to discover what kind of mental pathology I was surrounded by in my life and found it helpful. Tam, you raise a really good question, and I really empower people to reality test for themselves. So if you go to bitemodel.com, for example, you can fill out anonymously and free 40 questions, mostly disagree, mostly agree, and actually get a number on the influence continuum so you can reality test. Or you can go to the hair psychopathology checklist on someone who is in your life controlling you. But telling someone who's actively in a mind controlled situation, go do this and see how screwed up this person is or the cult leader is, that is going to backfire. So, but you can share, hey, I was in the Moonies, or I was in this controlling relationship, and I found this checklist on psychopathology about the guy I was involved with, or the ex-wife or something. Have you ever heard of the hair psychopathology checklist? I'd like to share it with you and get your opinion on it. That's about as far as I would recommend going. I would leave out Trump and how they should apply it. I am that parent. Why isn't impeachment happening? What would it take? Well, we tried to impeach Trump twice in the past for actual criminal behavior, anti-constitutional behavior, and the GOP did not go along to make it happen and convict and oust him. So now that they're controlling all three branches of government, I just think this is not a possibility. So I don't think it's wise to spend our time asking about processes that have no chance of being implemented at the moment. Focus on what's within our power to do and our control to do. And part of that is making sure you're taking care of yourself, sleeping properly, exercising, eating healthy food, avoiding sugar. Sugar is one of the most poisonous substances to the human body, refined sugar. I just read a recent book, The Hacking of the American Mind, by an endocrinologist, Robert Lustig, and he's agreed to and consented to a podcast interview with me. I love this book. And he talks about how sugar undermines our metabolic processes in dramatic ways. And he also talks about how the advertising industry and how mind controllers want to get us addicted to dopamine hits, thinking we're going to be happy to have a dopamine hit. But the happiness is fleeting. And what we need to be doing is going for contentment, which really comes down to doing things in real life to help others. That's how people truly feel fulfilled. They feel like they're doing a good thing. They're contributing to others and the planet. And we need to really take control of our mind and bodies and say, do we want to do what we're seeing on the advertisement, buying food that's not healthy for us? Or do we want to see the advertisement go, they're spending millions of dollars to get people to be unhealthy and be obese and have diabetes, and I'm going to eat healthy? And that's what I really encourage people to start thinking about it. So I've already answered the question that's on the screen. Why isn't impeachment happening? But I'm very heartened if Christians are now starting in the Congress or in the Senate, if Christians are starting to speak up for the teachings of Jesus and protecting the immigrants, protecting women, the downtrodden, and not the super rich, And Jesus said explicitly how hard it is for wealthy people to get into the kingdom of heaven. And he said explicitly, the more you do for the least in my kingdom, you do for me. Now, I'm quoting Christianity. I'm a Jew, but I know what the New Testament teaches, and I've worked with enough Christians who are believers as well as Christian cult members that I can feel okay to share what limited knowledge I have about this. Jenny, hi, Dr. Hassan. Hi, Jenny. Historically, what is the last straw that brings down a cult leader? That's a good question. I can say it took military might to bring down Hitler, and Hitler killed himself. And there were the Nuremberg trials, and Eichmann was tried and convicted and killed for his participation in the atrocity. I can say Dateline did a big expose of a cult called Zen Master Rama. They did a two-part, each was an hour long, and the cult leader killed himself because he was so exposed what a fraud he was, and he took his own life. So now we have two cult leaders who killed themselves. I can talk about the FBI raiding Scientology's headquarters and finding all the documentation of how they broke and entered government offices and framed critics and did all kinds of criminal behavior. 11 top leaders, including Hubbard's wife, went to jail, but Hubbard was floating around in a boat, so authorities didn't know where he was. He escaped punishment. He's dead. And now David Miscavige is running the cult, and the cult is very much involved with the cult of Trump, unfortunately, as is the Moonies and Falun Gong. And by the way, there's been some good reporting by the New York Times about Shen Yun, which is a project of the Falun Gong cult that also does the Epoch Times propaganda machine that's pro-Trump. So what else brings down cults is exposure by independent journalism and whistleblowers, people who are on the inside that bring out documentation of criminal behavior. That has brought down cults in the past. But in the end, I don't think Trump is very healthy. He's not going to live forever. I worry about J.D. Vance being put in place by Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. I worry about Mike Johnson and his dominionism and his Christian nationalism. So Trump, Vance, Johnson are all very problematic. And I worry a lot about their competing visions of how they want to destroy the United States and use it for their own purposes, and to use it to help Putin and advance Putin's agenda. Let's see, Robert asks, how do you talk to someone that didn't believe Project 2025 was real yet? Now he's doing things right out of the book. Robert, it depends on who it is. Is it a close friend? Is it your brother, your sister? And basically you can get a copy of Project 2025. And I do believe there's a website where someone's actually tracking the document and saying what's been implemented and not. I believe somebody asked, and I'm forgetting the name of the head of the Heritage Foundation that did Project 2025. I want to say it's Jackson, but it could be Johnson. And he said Project 2025 has succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. So we can look for that video excerpt of it and get a video of Trump before the election saying that he doesn't even know what Heritage Project 2025 is, and other lies. And you go, I'm confused. this says this says this. How do you make sense of this? And you wait for an answer. And, ultimately, if something is legitimate, it will stand up to scrutiny. You will get evidence. And if it's not true, then it will be exposed. And that's how I live my life. I have beliefs based on evidence. And if someone says, oh, that was a fake video, I want to see the proof of that. I want to see the evidence. So I'm open to changing my mind. I separate my beliefs from my ego. I just want to be a good person who's moral and compassionate and empathetic. And I also want to use my smarts and my decades of education to help as many people as I can. Let's see. Stormy on TikTok says it's scary what Trump is doing with people with disabilities. I totally agree. Taking our money in Social Security. I totally agree. It's disgusting and horrible. And asks if I've ever heard of the Cult Education Institute. I'm afraid I have heard of it. I don't like it. I don't recommend it. I'm not going to get into the person who runs it, but he is not a good actor. He has been publicly accusing me of lying, which I do not do. He has publicly stated that there is no cult of Trump. And there's on and on and on. I'm waiting for an independent journalist to do a story on him, in fact. Let's see. Shannon, it's hard to not think of these MAGA cultists as bad people who lack love and care for humanity. I understand. I get that you think they're bad people, but I want to tell you, I was a frickin' Moonie. I thought Sun Myung Moon was the Messiah. I was taught to believe the American democracy was satanic and needed to be disbanded, and theocracy had to be set up. I actively was taught to lie to people to get them into the cult because I was told that Satan is the god of this world and I have to deceive Satan's children to follow God. I did a lot of horrendous things because I was brainwashed. And when I was deprogrammed and I understand Chinese communist brainwashing techniques, and I started to understand the systematic social influence processes used on me, I was able to return back to who I really am and that I'm a good person. And I'm not an evil person. I'm not a bad person. And that's not to say there aren't bad people out there who are in the cult of Trump, as there may be bad people who have criminal backgrounds in any number of organizations. But just understand, beliefs does not equate personality. Blue Lady gave a super chat $2 and thanked me, and I thank you back. I am asking folks to, especially people who know philanthropic foundations that give grants, I would like to be doing 100 times more than what I'm able to do funding my organization, Freedom of Mind, on my own consultation fees. So we're hoping to develop a YouTube subscription model. We're asking people to consider finding trustworthy sources of information and supporting them. And I know that people are being asked to support a whole lot of good people who are out there, and everyone needs to make their own decision what the priorities are for them and who they are willing to help financially on things or donate time or energy to amplify messages. Let's see, JC, I talked to my financial advisor this morning. He's a pretty conservative guy, agreed with me on most points, and assured this is market manipulation, billionaires shorting and gaming the system, and shifting views now. I'm not an expert in the stock market, and I know that you buy a stock and you can short it, which means you think it's going to go down, or you can buy stock and think it's going to go up. I know there's a lot of AI that's involved with this now. It's not my expertise at all. I just know from my research with the cult of Trump that Putin really wants to take down the United States of America as the Soviet Union fell and Americans rejoiced, and different states within the Soviet Union became independent, like Ukraine. And Putin is now has been working for decades to take us down. And I won't be shocked if Texas is going to want to secede, or other states will secede, because the federal administration's being destroyed. And it sucks. I am not happy at all about what's happening, especially because I've been warning people for years and people haven't been taking me seriously. And now they're starting to realize that Hassan was right. And they're starting to read The Cult of Trump instead of just look at the cover and actually understand what my arguments are and my evidence. Let's see. As a mom in Florida with a network of mothers who voted for Trump, how would you suggest navigating a group where you connect on motherhood but oppose political views? What can I say? Be yourself. Um, it always, when you're interacting with a group of people that you've known for a while, I wouldn't do anything too radical. I would do things in stages, but always asking questions is going to be more effective than making declarations. And I've confessed that I bought a Tesla in 2022, and the more I saw what Musk was doing and his agenda, I got to a point where, despite the fact that I would lose more than half the value of the vehicle, I sold it last August of 2024 and bought a Toyota Camry hybrid. But now I don't have dissonance driving around, and I'm not promoting a person and an agenda that's contrary to my values and my beliefs. And you can just share that with people. If they reject you and because you've shared your beliefs and your choices, that's on them. And just say, I care about you as a person. I'd like you to be my friend, but I just can't conscience doing X, Y, or Z anymore. And if you want to get together for lunch and be my friend, I'm still open to it. Let them shun you as opposed to you shun them, is my best advice. Let's see, JC, can it be helpful to share commentators' clips against Trump and crew if they used to be true believers and got discarded and disillusioned, even if they are criticizing the leader? So, the bottom line is you can try lots of things and see what works. If you try a clip and you get more defensiveness or anger, or they feel like you're persecuting them, apologize and do information gathering. Ask them what they might be open to. I find it's effective to ask people, if you because you value them, to ask their opinion, to watch something with you and see how they react. They may react badly at the moment, but then they may be thinking afterward about it. A lot of people who got sucked into the cult of Trump through QAnon got involved because they genuinely don't like trafficking and pedophiles, and direct them to trafficking experts, legitimate trafficking experts. I've interviewed a number of them, trafficking and labor trafficking experts, and asked their opinion. Listen to an interview, ask them what they think about it. Let's see, Lady Godiva, do you think that some individuals that align with dictator like MAGA supporters, are predisposed to a personality disorder themselves, admiring leaders that embody cruelty, lack of accountability, etc. So maybe, but doubtful is my reaction to that question. And in general, what we've learned by studying social psychology is that we have an unconscious bias here and here when we look at human beings' choices and their behaviors to overestimate what's called personality variables or dispositional variables, like they have a bad personality or they have a personality disorder, and underestimate the social environmental context and influences on the person. And I've been following neuroscience developments as closely as I can. And we now have scientific evidence that we entrain our brain waves with other people by hanging out with them. When we're singing together, when we're listening to a talk, we are affected unconsciously, neurologically, by the people we're hanging out with. And so if you're hanging out with a closed group of people, I encourage you, get a new perspective. Hang out with people from a very different perspective and experience the world from their point of view. But also understand you need to be grounded in your own values, your own beliefs, and be aware if you're starting to shift to adopting beliefs that you don't fundamentally agree with. I do believe facts matter. I do believe in the scientific method, which says there's no truth with a capital T. There are hypotheses that we then can test, and we're ready to abandon a hypothesis if there's a better hypothesis and proof. And just be prepared to change your mind as new evidence rolls in. Next one is, in the cult with fascist overtones, toxic masculinity is a fundamental element. They make men feel insecure so they can control them with their insecurities. A core factor is submissive women. So this goes back to what I wrote in The Cult of Trump about Edward Bernays and his 1928 book, Propaganda. And his insight and the grounding of all of public relations and marketing is that you don't sell the product, you sell the need for the product. So if you make people feel insecure about their body weight, you can sell them dieting stuff. If you make people feel insecure about their body odor, you can sell them deodorants, and on and on and on. And when it comes to men, I think that women's liberation and women's rights and women entering science and law and government has been one of the best things that's ever happened. I am for human rights, fundamentally women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, indigenous rights, rights of minority religion, rights to speak your mind and hold contrarian beliefs, as long as it's not hate speech that's harming other people, that's causing damage to other people. And so I really think men who are being told they need a submissive wife to get them pregnant and they shouldn't work and all of that, this, I think, is a Putin idea, contrary to the Soviet Union, by the way, which was very pro women's rights and equal rights, a communist ideal. But this is very much Project Russia that my colleague Dave Troy has written extensively with. A plug for his newsletter, America #2.news. And he has a great podcast, Dave Troy Presents. And he's done extensive historical review of information about Project Russia, my colleague Joe Zimhart, who's an expert in I am and ascended masters and a lot of Blavatsky theosophy and other occult ideologies. So we need to unpack what's happening and make grounded decisions that make sense for us and our family and our children. Do you see many other malignant narcissists within Republicans or are afraid of Trump? So malignant narcissists, I read the criteria. You can also go to Freedom of Mind and download the PDF of the criteria. And if you study that, you can pretty much protect yourself and your family and friends from 80% of all bad actors you'll ever meet, whether they're heads of companies or involved with politics or whatever. Many of these people, because they think they're above the law, do criminal acts. They're always looking for power over because they need narcissistic supply. They're always interested in more money. They're often abusing people sexually, and not sex with love, sex for power's sake, to have power over their victims. Dr. Hassan, we're into our last few minutes. Dr. Hassan, in your opinion, what percentage of cult followers extract themselves from whatever cult they are involved with? You know, this is a great question, and I wish we had statistics, but my guess, and this is now almost 50 years, my guess is that 80% leave on their own from a mind control cult, especially if they weren't born and raised in it, but they got recruited into it. And they leave, I would say, in the first 1 to 3 years. But the big criteria is what kind of access and contact they have with the outside world, outside the cult, that is, information and people that they care about, that they can, bounce ideas off of and such. So what I've been saying to my clients for decades is, assume your loved one's going to leave. You want to help them leave sooner and more easily and adjust more easily when they get out and not carry around all the trauma. So I am predicting millions of people leaving the cult of Trump in the coming months, millions. And I'm really begging everyone who's listening to me and their friends and their families to learn about the influence continuum, the bite model, study freedom of mind, check out my course and my workbook that just came out, and reach out. If you're talking to someone at work who's a MAGA person, don't shun them, interact with them and just say, you still like Trump. Is there anything that concerns you? You like Trump? What do you think of Musk? What do you think of Thiel? And just ask questions. And Cammie's telling me to thank Stormy for TikTok gifts, and Rod Brown joined at a £5 super chat. Thank you, Rod. Love your channel. Keep going, Steve. And I'm really wanting to empower more former members to start sharing their stories, because we want to destigmatize the idea that only weak, stupid, uneducated people can be deceived into a mind control cult. We want to say all humans can be deceived. The mind is very adaptive and socially susceptible, especially if you think you're invulnerable, as I did as a 19-year-old. I'm an extra honor student. Nobody can brainwash me. And man, was I gone. But nobody knew how to ask me questions that need me reality tests. And if we had more time, I would give an example or two, maybe for the next time. I want to invite you to listen to this week's podcast with a former member of the Krishnas who was in their PR department. Next week, we have a social psychologist who exited a left-wing political cult, Alexandra Stain. And please become subscribers on our YouTube channel. We're going to be developing that. And I am working on a guidebook for how to talk to family and friends in MAGA that I hope we can get done in the next few weeks and share. And thank you, Hannah, for TikTok gifts. And thank you, Cami. Thank you, Jerry. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And I'm going to attempt to keep doing lives at least once a week and possibly more, because I really like interacting with people as we have real live events taking place. So stay strong. We need to do active resistance and, go play with your dog, your cat, your child, your friend's child. Go in nature, go dancing, listen to music. I heard a wonderful poet read last night. Tiana Clark has a new book called Scorched Earth. I was listening to her read last night at Smith College. I was a poet before the Moonies, and they made me throw out my poetry. And this is part of my desire to reconnect more with my authentic self, is to get back into listening to poetry, reading poetry, and writing poetry. So thanks, team, and see you again soon. Bye.